Hey Al.
Hey Joe.
So I think the first topic of the day is going to be really just game services, and
Mm.
obviously Bethesda just joined Xbox really, so the deal's done.
Yep. Yep.
Microsoft and Xbox have just acquired themselves a whole load of first-class IP
Yep.
and exclusives, I would say. I think what I want to talk about is, how will Game Pass develop because of this, and what will PlayStation, do
Mm.
to counter this? I mean, do they even need to counter this? And
Yep.
one part of the conversation that people are not having is how it really impacts the existing game stores
Yeah.
like Steam or Epic, because it's not really an Xbox versus PlayStation thing.
Mm.
It's a Game Pass and everywhere else that you can get games.
Yeah. Because it's an interesting one, right? It's the same way as as you treated kind of owning videos and DVDs back in the day versus streaming it nowadays. Paying a service from Netflix, paying for a service from Amazon Prime and things like that. It is a shift, and I think it does it does beg the question, how these are they going to continue to keep evolving? Is that the way forward for everything? Even if you look at videos and DVDs and stuff, I think people are slowly moving them onto, purchasing them digitally. I've certainly been doing that. I've been less so on the streaming services. I mean, I think I'm using I'm using Prime Video. That's the only thing I'm really using, and obviously YouTube, but not YouTube Premium or anything like that. So yeah, it will be interesting if there's more kind of service providers of these types of game services, or whether you know game stores like GameStop and others try to move into that sort of industry as well.
Maybe even Steam.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing. I mean, you can't imagine that the digital storefronts aren't going to be impacted.
Yeah, I mean the big contender and the big one that's really spending lots is obviously Epic and their Epic Game Stores. And they're giving away lots of free games, not as part of a pass. Interestingly, it's just free for you to own. Um, yeah, and whether they would change that model at some point to be more subscription based.
I do wonder if that's really the key. At the end of the day, when you look at Games Pass, I coin it as kind of an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Yeah.
PS Plus at the moment is, I coined it in another video, more like a tasting menu
Hmm.
where you come in and you sample certain dishes and some of which are signature dishes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when I thought about this, I thought good for Xbox owners and Microsoft and PC owners who have a Game Pass. They're getting much better value.
Yeah.
But then I thought, how much time do I really have to kind of like plow through hundreds of these games?
Yeah. This is where I think the services and the subscription model, there's only a certain set of customers which it makes sense for, because if you take, I mean, I play probably quite a bit over at the weekends, but then I actually prefer owning the particular thing. And if you're not really playing that much, should you really be paying for a subscription service that you're never going to get all the way through the content in there? If you're playing that much, do you want actually a rented service, or do you want to try and purchase them and do it from there and build up a library?
Yeah, I think the level of optionality is always good. What I would say is that when you look at it on
Mm.
paper, the amount of value you get from Game Pass is, let's say, it's a 10 out of
Yeah.
10, something along those lines. When you kind of using it practically, it's actually more like a 6 out of 10.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because whilst you've got the option of all of that, all of this great content, you don't have time for it all
Mm.
necessarily. You're really focused on a handful of games that you really actually want to kind of
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
So the value on paper versus the value in practice is somewhat
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
Honestly, the only way I think Sony could compete with that service at the moment, not necessarily offer hundreds upon hundreds of games, focus on what their strengths are, and that's
Mm.
that, first party killer IP that they're known for, and somehow wrapping that up in a model that you can give people. Sony will be thinking, well, listen, we make millions upon millions of pounds by selling these games
Mm.
for, I don't know, 50 to 70 pounds now, whatever the number is. It's a stupid number, I know, because obviously they've upped the price of the old games, right? But they don't have to do that day one, do
Yeah.
they?
Yeah.
Because the people who want that content, they'll buy that
Yeah.
content. But the value of their service will be that you'll get it over time. Will it be, I don't know, 1 year,
Yeah.
6 months, whatever it may be.
And maybe it's a certain market as well, and maybe because we're slightly different, whereby I think because you get a breadth of games and content that you get from these game passes and game services, then actually maybe you need a family of, a dad would go after certain games, their kid may go after certain types of games, and actually if you then split it and say you've got multiple kids or something, they're after different types of games, and being able to share that kind of service would be quite an interesting one. You take full advantage of the content that's available in such a subscription service.
So you're going to organise the content depending on who's using the pass.
Yeah, because Steam also give you that family library as well, where you can share it with. I think I can't remember if it's one or maybe there's multiple. I think it was multiple actually, because I was able to share my Steam library with my brothers, so they could have my content when I'm not actively on my Steam account, as in playing a game on my Steam account. Then they can have access to my full library,
which is a fairly consumer-friendly way of doing things. I think. Why not? The other point I would make on the whole Bethesda, acquisition, really is, what have Bethesda done actually recently?
Not a lot of successes, I tell you that.
I mean, don't get me wrong, right? I think of course it's seismic, because under the acquisition, you've also got ID.
Yeah.
Obviously, so you've got Doom, you've got Wolfenstein, you've got all of that. All right, so obviously that's a big deal. But a lot of people have been talking about Bethesda, Skyrim, Elder Scrolls, whatever it is, right?
Fallout, I think, is obviously the thing.
Yeah, Fallout,
and obviously Fallout 76 recently, the thing that's they killed their image, I think, with the stuff and things that they do.
For my money, the kind of tech press, the fanboys, kind of drumming this up. If you ask me. The other thing that's in my head as well is that you have obviously another group of PlayStation owners or fanboys, whatever the case may be, who are just kind of screaming bloody murder because of this. But when you look at the numbers, the top-selling titles, on the PlayStation are typically first-party Sony titles.
Yeah. Or I think GTA did really well, but then you've got stuff like
of course.
Actually, in the past there was things like Tekken that sold really well as well.
Yeah, but that's synonymous with PlayStation.
Yeah,
Tekken.
And then although Tekken's now, I guess it's pretty much on every platform now, Tekken. But back in the day, it was obviously one of its main selling points. And what was it? The Gran Turismo series that we talked about previously as well.
Yeah, that's first party. But yeah, it just got me thinking. I mean, like, we're well, not we per se, but I mean, people are just screaming bloody murder about this, and like, it's the death of PlayStation and whatnot. But is it really?
They've got. I mean, I don't think they were really selling. I mean, Skyrim VR was really good with the PSVR, but I don't think. I'd be surprised if anyone plays Fallout 76 on the PlayStation 4. It's just like, why?
I'm guessing people still play that now.
I know. It's just like,
I remember the reception not being entirely kind of spectacular when it came out. Yeah, but I mean, the mind boggles, right? But I mean, look, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
The acquisition itself is going to be fantastic for Xbox. And Windows PCs. Yeah, there's a lot of great kind of IP there. Let's not forget how good, Doom Eternal is. The Wolfenstein games have been great.
Apart from the last one as well. This is the problem, is that the last few each one of them have had something that's not been that great.
But Arcane are there, who are ironically doing Deathloop, which is a PS5 exclusive. They've had the Dishonored series, so there's content there, to be had. It's just that I'm just not 100% convinced it's this kind of like world-ending like event. It's big. It's not like Naughty Dog switching allegiances to Xbox or something like that, is it?
Yeah, if Rockstar Games then suddenly went to one side, then that's much more significant. I just don't think they sold that many Bethesda games on PlayStation to warrant anyone to panic.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I don't understand the panic. I kind of understand that for Microsoft to have acquired these studios, it's a massive thing. But the panic, from the PlayStation fanboys and the high fives you're getting from the Xbox fanboys, I don't really understand. Necessarily. I think
it's just a dig, I guess, right? It's just anything to have a dig at, because it would be like, I guess, PlayStation owners that don't venture to an Xbox or venture to a PC, they will be limited. They'll be
Yeah, of
limited on
course.
what they've kind of got.
Yeah, I mean, but logically think it through. PlayStation can't play Halo, it can't play Gears. Yeah,
Yep.
that hasn't changed. Xbox can't play Uncharted, it can't play The Last of Us, it can't play God of War, it can't play Horizon, and there's a number of things it can't play. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
I
It's
mean,
like,
that's why you could argue PC Master Race, right? Yeah, even some of the Sony exclusives, Horizon Zero Dawn and stuff like that, and Death Stranding have gone onto PC and things. So, you know,
yeah, I think, again, like, I mean, some of the PlayStation Nation will hate me for saying this, but I think good on Sony.
mm, mm.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah,
You know, you've got this large contingent of gamers, yeah, sitting on PCs. Sony have got this great IP. Why not roll it out to them?
yeah, yeah,
Why not broaden your horizons? Why not advertise the next kind of version of your game that's coming out?
yeah, yeah.
Why not keep these studios in business?
Indeed,
Yeah, because
indeed.
it's expensive to basically develop games. You want to do as much as you can to ensure that the business side of things is kept going.
Yeah,
They can keep creating.
exactly. You want players. You want players on it. You want people to purchase it. You want people to buy the brand and the IP, the merchandise, the everything else all the way around it, right?
Correct.
You
Yeah,
build
correct.
brand kind of loyalty around it. That's why you get the people pre-ordering the next one and things like that. And you get hype around it. If the more people play a particular game, the more popular it is.
Yeah, correct, correct. I gotta admit, I mean, I'm not sure that I like the idea of Games Pass becoming this monolithic service.
Yeah.
It's like a black hole where
Mm,
it
mm.
sucks everything into it, and without you being on Games Pass,
Yeah.
you can't really access it.
Yeah.
That I'm not a big fan of. I like the fact that there are independent studios out there
Yeah.
and publishers outside of the Sony ecosystem, outside of Nintendo, outside of
Mm.
Microsoft. That I'm gonna stand
I
by.
I think it'd be interesting if they do stuff like so at the moment there's very limited, I guess, in the number of game type services and game type passes. But if you think of like the TV or the Sky kind of TV kind of subscription model, if you think of like, I want these types of channels, I want these types of games, maybe the passes should be these genres of games should be part of an additional add-on to your subscription. So then you can pull them together, right? So you have more
Yeah,
choice,
you
really.
have a bit of a partnership, but
Mm.
the only thing with that is you're just short of a monopoly.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's where I kind of think, well,
You could argue Sky as a.
yeah, well, we know how much Sky BSB has got in trouble in the past, right? I would prefer that we stop short, of that.
Mm.
There should be a fair degree of, I would say, independence and autonomy in the
Yeah.
industry, rather than having one or
Mm.
two, I would say, powerful umbrella corporations controlling everything. That I don't want.
Yeah.
That I certainly don't want.
It's difficult because you're tied to multiple things, right? If you think of the reasons why Steam, the game store itself, Epic and its game store, and then you think about the charging model that they apply on top of it, right? They take a cut for obviously having your particular game listed. If you're using particular engines, you have to pay particular cuts in it. So there is a whole kind of tie-in around that based on a market that is a store that is tied to something that requires additional kind of money and a usage license
Yeah, I
around it.
mean, what I would say is that, and the reason I wouldn't want this to go too far, the reality is,
Hmm.
right, when you align yourself to whatever storefront, whether that's Epic, Steam, Game Pass, whether it's PS Store, you're actually
Hmm.
aligning yourself to, the penetration,
Yeah.
getting that for whatever, license, subscription, royalties you have to pay, where it is. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
But the reality is, if you have a small number of people who control that market, like I said, you're more or less than a monopoly.
Yeah.
You're also then got the power to direct people down a certain route.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You basically controlling the ecosystem fully.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Those are dangers. I don't necessarily think it will go down that route, but
Yeah. I mean, my general view on the game servicing is really tied to the last topic, the cloud gaming service portion of it.
Yeah.
And I've got some views on that latter topic. But yeah, I think they're interlinked really. You've got to do, if you want a really good game service that's going to work, you're going to have to tie it to cloud services as well, I think.
In saying all of that, one thing I will say about what Xbox has done is that I actually feel it's pushed Sony into giving away more free games.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It has to. Yeah, there's basically all the fanboys are comparing the what you get on the subscription services.
Well, I'll basically say this, right? Since the launch, we've had more free games on PS Plus than I recall in the whole of the last year. Of note that in my view are noteworthy, if you know what I mean.
Hmm.
That are noteworthy.
Yeah, and Sony are actually giving away a bunch of games,
Yeah,
aren't they?
yeah, yeah.
It's for Easter or something. I don't know what
Yeah,
it is,
it's
what
the
holiday it
whole
is, but
play at home initiative.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and I basically kind of logged in yesterday and got them all.
yeah. Nice.
And
Yeah.
I tell you, there's some good games there.
Hmm.
VR and kind of obviously non-VR. Yeah,
Yeah. What was it? Moss, I think I saw was
yeah.
and was it Astrobot? Those two
Uh,
are really big kind of VR games.
the Horizon Complete Edition
Yeah,
is going to
that's
be out there
huge.
soon. The last Ratchet and Clank game, which was excellent, that's there. And then on PS Plus, obviously they've had the Destruction All Stars, which
Mm.
was going to be a full price PS5 game. That's free.
Yep. Yep.
I think Control was free,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
Ultimate
Hmm.
Edition. You know, since the launch, there have been some very good freebies from Sony, and I can't help but think it's because of the kind of value that Games Pass is giving. There's your competition.
Yeah. And plus, I think it's still missing some launch titles, things to keep PlayStation 5 going. But then again, I guess there's also an issue, obviously, with the limited availability of PlayStation 5s as well.
When it's all said and done, I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic
Yep.
that's impacted almost everything and everybody.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
In actual fact, I'm actually lucky to have any of these consoles come out.
True.
You know,
True.
on time, right? And I just feel that, giving it another half year,
Yep.
we might see a steady stream of games being delivered. I mean, I think the next big game coming out on PS5 is going to be Return.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's been, I think, delayed until April now,
Okay. Okay.
or late April, I should say.
Yeah.
Or was it later April? I can't remember now because it was a March game. Now it's an April game.
Mm-hmm.
So games will be coming out, and factor all of that in. Middle of a pandemic affects
Yeah.
everything. Hardware supply affects people. So obviously the people who are developing the hardware and the software, there's going to be delay.
Yeah.
You're not going to get everything you want, day one, but it will come. In many ways, I just think we should be kind of grateful
Mm.
that even got these new consoles.
Yeah. 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 We should be. We should.
Obviously we've kind of turned it almost into a Game Pass versus PS Plus,
Mm.
fight. But really, how do you think Games Pass is going to impact stuff like Steam and Epic?
I think they'll be fine. I think they'll be fine. Again, it's that middle ground of ownership versus renting. I guess renting a service.
Mm.
And I think people will still want to have ownership. Much like Blu-ray collections, or even now, it's now slowly building onto which online store have you got video content on, and building up the catalog in there as well. Ownership versus renting. I think people still hold on to the fact that if they're not going to be watching that much, then the service doesn't make enough sense. Unless they're using it enough.
Yeah, I personally think it will have an impact.
Hmm.
I just can't imagine that if something like Games Pass, and I'm only thinking about the high-profile AAA games.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
If obviously Games Pass are able to throw money around and get some of these titles as part of Games Pass,
Hmm.
revenues are going to get hit either
Hmm.
via Steam or Epic.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing there will be depends on the model for the game service, right? If they have to purchase it, because in theory, the underlying end company would still get money for it. For someone must have purchased it, whether it's the game service or an individual owner.
Yeah, but if you consider that some of these game stores that we know and love, like Steam and
Hmm.
Epic and whatnot, they must work on a on a royalty basis.
Yeah. Yeah.
They get a cut, and
Mm.
equally the developers get their cut. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But if you look at Games Pass, obviously there ain't no cut per se, but there's a
Mm.
fixed lump sum. I'm assuming, or maybe there's some sort of tiered or banded mechanism for something along
Mm.
those lines for
Yeah.
payment. So unless that lump sum is astronomical,
Yeah.
someone's going to lose out, if you know what I mean. It's like, it might not be the
Mm.
developers per se, but someone is going to lose out here.
Yeah, yeah. Someone with all these sort of all-you-can-eat services will
Yeah, yeah,
try and take advantage of it, right? You know,
yeah,
they will utilize it to its
yeah,
limits.
yeah, yeah. Of course, right? And yeah, you don't really, you don't have to pay for Steam if you don't buy something from Steam. It's
Mm.
just there. Steam's
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
If you subscribe to Games Pass, you get everything Games Pass has to offer. But then that revenue that Steam might be making gets cut off, or
yeah,
it starts
yeah,
to significantly reduce.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So during a window release, right, you might see a significant drop in kind of revenues because of that. So, yeah, I don't know why people are not talking about that. To be honest, I'm almost scratching my head at this because sometimes
I
it's like the whole kind of Warframe v Destiny conversation.
Yeah, but I think it's also because I think stores will exist for quite some time because it'll
Yeah, yeah,
be, even if you were to look at the impact, I would say the biggest threat to game services is free to play games. If there are good enough free to play games out there, do you need a game service
mm.
that offers
Oh,
you
that's an
a bunch
interesting
of
one.
these games that you don't need to pay anything for, technically?
Yeah, do the game stores get a cut of the microtransactions?
Oh, this goes into the Epic versus Apple. There is something, but yeah.
I think if that's the case, then not a problem, right? I think it will become a problem when a service like a Game Pass, this all-you-can-eat service, decide, you know what?
Mm,
They'll say, free-to-play games. That's really part of our future. We'll not only, we'll offer them,
yeah,
and what we'll also do is give maybe credit or some sort. I can't imagine that they'll be allowed to basically kind of offer all you can eat in terms of the microtransactions because that would give the game the kiss of death.
mm,
But
mm,
they might chuck out credit and say, okay, with Game Pass it's free to play, but we'll give you X amount of currency in game,
yeah, yeah.
and that would really put the cat amongst the pigeons. You know what I mean? Yeah, there's all sorts of ways this could go. Or, Games Pass might say, that's not our bag. Because if
Yeah,
we did that, then, we might be really hurting this kind of free-to-play game or the studio behind it. So,
yeah, yeah,
unless, of course, it's their game. That's a different story altogether.
yeah. I'm wondering because I know it's the main issue comes from obviously things like being on Android and the Play Store, being on Apple and the Apple Store. I think those are the main contentious ones. And there's that legal case, right, with Epic and Apple. I think is the main one because I suspect it's Fortnite. It must be Fortnite transactions
Yeah, no doubt.
in the Apple Store that Apple must have been charging a cut.
No doubt about that.
And I think was it the story that Epic have dragged Steam into the conversation as well, or the case because I think they probably asked Steam to present information around how its store works probably.
It sounds absolutely messy, but,
Yeah.
But these are multi-million, multi-billion kind of entities now. So like
Mm.
people are gonna fight for it. They're not gonna bend over and take it if you know what I mean. There's no way.
Yeah.
The more I think about this whole services thing, what Microsoft are doing, obviously what Sony are doing, right? I do think right people are being quite narrow in their view of Game Pass. Yeah,
Mm.
you take it as service versus service
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
match up,
Yeah.
whatever we want to call it, fight, fisticuffs, duel
Yeah.
to the death, right? The reality is, unless Sony decide to give up their first party IP to Game Pass,
Mm-hmm.
it's less of a factor than people realise, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by extension, the chances of Games Pass driving, let's say, users, gamers away from PlayStation are
Mm.
also more limited than people might realise.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the
Yeah.
reality is, I can drop my PlayStation because I want to play, I don't know, Elder Scrolls or whatnot, or Starfield.
Mm.
But I still can't play Uncharted. I still can't play God of War, and that's actually what I play on my PlayStation. So
Yeah.
why do it?
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, why don't I just get a PC? Why?
Yeah.
I mean,
Indeed.
not right now, obviously, because that'll, you'll pay double the amount for what you would normally do. But maybe sometime in the
Yeah.
future, who knows, right?
That is the thing, right? These exclusives. I remember when I had. It must have been the PlayStation 3.
Yeah.
Actually, I think at that stage I also had the Wii, so I had all three on that generation, right? So it was the PlayStation, the Wii, and then I got myself an Xbox 360 because I wanted to play the new Gears that had come out. So, that's the main game I kind of went for, and then obviously did the Xbox exclusives, right? You just went and bought Forza and all those sorts of games, and you played those, and you played the Halos. But you could, you'd get it, and you'd get it later when you wanted to play those games.
You know what? If there was one question I'd ask Phil Spencer,
Hmm.
after a few drinks, of course, I'd need to pluck up the courage. I'd say to him, Phil, do you know what? With Games Pass being what it is, whose lunch do you really think you're eating?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what? I think the lunch that he's really going to be eating, certainly in the short term,
Mm.
is Steam, Epic, people like that.
Mm. Mm. Well, it is. It is. It is. It's basically anyone that's contemplating renting instead of owning.
Yeah.
It's an upfront cost versus overtime rental cost, of
Yeah,
which you
yeah.
can also drop it anytime you want. It's the same with cars nowadays. You can a lot of cars you can just go and lease nowadays rather than
Yeah,
actually
yeah, of
having to
course.
purchase and own it. So.
Yeah. But Games Pass right now doesn't have any of Sony's first party exclusives. So whose lunch are you really eating? I can tell you it's not necessarily Sony's lunch, though you will make an impact, there's no doubt about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
The first group of people on the menu is not necessarily
Yeah.
Sony. Do you
But
know what I mean?
that's why I think the target audience for these game passes just feels like very unique sets, which will then actually give you more people that are tied into your system and platform a bit more. I think it's families of people that are sharing the console that is probably doing most of this.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to how it pans out and to see really what I think Microsoft's roadmap and
Mm.
long-term vision for this is. It's because I mean, listen, it can't be a small investment for
Yeah.
Microsoft. It's no small undertaking getting all these publishers on board. ZeniMax was a huge amount of money
Mm.
paid for that set of studios. So it's not a small thing. I don't at all believe that Microsoft couldn't do this for as long as they wanted to, and maybe not indefinitely, but for a long time.
Yeah.
They couldn't stump up the bill to keep this going for a long time.
Yeah.
But the reality is, if you look at the numbers now, I think Sony, in terms of the gaming space, are basically got double the amount of revenue.
Mm. Mm.
I recently saw some numbers, and it was something like 25 billion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Microsoft was less than half of that. It'd be interesting to see how those numbers go up or down. If it goes down, right, you realise that kind of Game Pass was actually a stupidly expensive endeavour. You know.
Maybe. Again, I think it depends on. Well, you need people on the consoles or on the PC to utilize it, and there has to be the right audience that wants to utilize it.
Yeah, but you've also got to pay these other publishers and developers
Mm.
an upfront cost. You're basically taking away royalties from them.
Yep.
They're not going to get now, and I'm just kind of interested to see how do you calculate something along those lines. Do you know what I mean? Or you just throw
With a lot
sum
of
money
lawyers having.
Yeah, I'm sure. But it's kind of like how do you estimate that? And like what is enough? What is enough?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a strange one because it's like, are they able to purchase? It feels like a piece of software, concurrent licenses or something, and how many users are using that service and things like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know
maybe,
what the legalities are on the license.
They could like band it and say, look, if somebody pays this game off our service X amount of times, then we'll give you this much, and they could literally do that.
Yeah.
Again, that's no small thing, right? And
Yeah.
when you think about the subscription itself, it's not a big subscription. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So you couldn't even think about chopping that subscription down and kind of
Yeah.
like distributing it out. I mean, you're talking about like fractions of a penny or something stupid like that.
Mm, mm,
So that equally,
yeah.
that's not going to happen.
Yeah, but this is why I think they need to change the groupings of the things that they offer. Because like I'm sure one of the downsides of these game subscription services, because it's so cheap, in all likelihood you're not going to get the brand new AAA release on day one. That's what it would feel like.
Well, on Game Pass they are, obviously.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
That's the thing, Al.
Mm,
Game Pass is the kind of AAA title. You know what I mean?
mm,
There's no, we're gonna sell the next kind of Elder Scrolls, and after 6 months it comes on Games Pass. It's
mm.
day one. This is on Games
Yeah.
Pass. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So only available on Game
Not
Pass.
only, not only,
Yeah,
but available on Games Pass day one as part of
yeah.
your subscription. So
Mm-hmm.
why the hell would you buy it from Steam, Epic, or anywhere else? Do you know what I mean? Like, this is what I'm trying to say. Like, well, why
Mm.
isn't anybody talking about this? It's kind of like, the more I think about this, the more I feel, is Sony actually losing any sleep over this?
I can't imagine they would.
I'm not actually sure they are. The people who should be losing sleep over this are the more traditional kind of digital game stores.
Mm. Yeah, because there'll be less people purchasing on the stores.
Yeah,
You
right.
know, if they think they can blast through it from renting it,
Yeah, right.
then great,
Yeah.
do that.
And unless the model that Microsoft are employing is fair to these other publishers and developers, and I think I'm pretty sure it is, they will also be losing out.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep,
they will also be losing out because obviously Microsoft will not want to necessarily overpay. Yeah, they run a business,
yep,
so
yep,
it's interesting how generous they've been or how controlled they've been with that.
yep,
And how do you distribute the wealth when you're basically building up this service, you're onboarding more and more and more games. Yeah? Let's be
yep.
honest, there's only so many gamers in the world, right? Even if they wiped kind of like PlayStation out and they took those
Mm.
100 million or so gamers, yeah?
Yep, yep.
Let's be generous. I mean, in console terms, 200 million, yeah?
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
The maths still need to stack up, really.
Oh yeah,
Do you know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
That's where it's actually quite interesting, I think. I mean,
yeah.
I'm glad they're doing something like this because, anything that's disruptive is good. And like I said, I mean, it feels like Sony have taken note. They probably don't feel they've been put on notice or anything like that. They probably
Yeah,
think, okay, well, you guys are doing that, so we'll have to do something like this.
yeah. We'll just give away some more games.
Yeah, correct. We're just gonna look after our PlayStation owners. That's the
Yeah,
name of the game.
yeah.
So. But anyway, interesting conversation. Let's see how this develops. It's for me, it's
Indeed.
still early days. But if this event, if this kind of acquisition that Microsoft are undertaking drives, a lot of disruption, competition, that's only a good thing. We're gonna,
Mm.
the gamers will win. So there you go.
Yep, yep.
Okay, I think with that said, it's time to kind of move on to our next topic.